Alrighty, so today's session is going to be on doing animated walkthrough, building walkthroughs within Autodesk Navisworks. My name is Tony Crawford. I'm here with Clint Circo.
I'm Clint Circo. I'm the operations manager here at CAD1 and your host for the webinar today.
So all right, in today's webinar, basically I'm going to go through two different methods of creating animated walkthroughs in Autodesk Navisworks software with some visual styles and some tips along the way, because honestly the two different methods for creating walkthroughs is not that difficult. It wouldn't fill up a full webinar, but to be honest, we'll probably be less than an hour with this one. At least that's my feel for it. I haven't actually run through it with a stopwatch yet. And in fact, in general, I'd say just FYI, I'd say our future webinars will probably be getting a little bit shorter in duration than some of them have in the past. I know mine, I always think, oh, this time I'm going to be less than an hour, and every time I go right up to that hour and sometimes go over by a few minutes. But anyway, let me go ahead and get started. Just a little bit of background, but go ahead.
Gina, you've got your hand raised. If you have a question, I'd ask you to type it in the questions box. It'll be at the bottom of your GoToWebinar, and we'll get that answered.
Cool. Yeah, if you have questions, type them in. There should be a questions part of the GoToMeeting toolbar, and some questions I'll answer right away. Some of them maybe I'll get to as that's part of the topics later on. And worst case, I might say that question is beyond the scope of this webinar. Is the worst thing I'll do. But go ahead and ask your questions. Alrighty. So a little bit of background. Everybody knows years ago, industry changed from drafting on paper to drafting on the computer. Now I would say the industry has changed or changing from drafting on the computer to modeling on the computer, from CAD, from drafting to BIM, building information modeling. So this is kind of something I'm putting together, just more of a visual instead of 2D line circles and text on a piece of paper. The way I think of it is actually, how am I going to build a building? I'm going to pre-build that building on the computer. Not just draw lines that represent how it's going to be constructed, but build a virtual building on the computer. I'm sure you've seen that. We've heard the term BIM, virtual design, VDC, virtual design and construction, whatever you call it. You've seen building designs that now have a lot more data, a lot more geometry, a lot more information than they have in the past. So how can we utilize this? And to be honest, in this one, I'm not going to touch the data a whole lot. I'll be mostly just looking at the visual aspect, the visual data. So let's jump into that. Let me flip over to Navisworks. There we go. I'm going to open up. So I'm starting with nothing. I've got no file open. I'm going to open a file. Which one am I going to do? Let's do this one first. Is that the one I wanted? I'm just going to hover over, look at the path. It's not there. Close enough. So if you've used Navisworks, this is going to be kind of a little basic. If you've been using Navisworks for a couple years, then you've probably seen most of these tools, but I'll try and point out a few tips and tricks, just hopefully help out along the way. It's not going to be every pick and click. It's not going to be like a class. We have a full one-day class for that, but I'm going to go through just a couple of workflows. Clint, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just a little curious how many of you guys out there are users right now, and it may be easier if you go ahead and raise your hand if you're not a user of Navisworks.
Yeah, so if you're not currently using it, or if you've used it, less than 1 day, or if maybe you've opened it and touched it. If you don't feel like you're an experienced user, go ahead and raise your hand, and I'll let you look. I don't have that box open.
Well, I'd say right at about 50% of the folks on the webinar now are not current users. So that's great.
Yeah.
Glad you guys are checking in and hope you guys get something out of this.
This will be just a couple of aspects of it. I'm not going to cover everything in Navisworks, but we will look at the walkthroughs and some other visual aspects, but not getting super deep into that either. All right, where was I? One of the important aspects, can you see? Okay, good. Hopefully you can see. I'll make little circles on my screen just so you can see where my mouse is at, just to help out with that. I have my Viewports dialog box on. That's one that I almost always have on. This file has some Viewports already in there. I clicked on one named Bar. There's one called Ice Rock Cafe. There's one called Cafe. Within this building, let's see. Let me go. Okay. This is what this building looks like. If you can see that. So this is what has been designed in, I think this one was actually done in 3ds Max. I'm not entirely sure what this one was created with. I'll have another file open up that I know was created with Revit because I opened it. It's the Revit file in Navisworks. It's one I've used in Revit a few times. So I have a building file here. It's 3D. It's got a lot of data. Again, I'm not going to go into that aspect too much. We're going to look at the 3D and the visual aspects. One thing to take note of is there's saved viewpoints. And forgive me if I call them viewports, but they're viewpoints in Navisworks. These are views that are preset up. Let me go with this. Well, if you want to create your own view, if you want a viewpoint that you can come back to later, you can zoom and pan, find the view that you want. I'm going to use this little tool called a navigation wheel or steering wheel. That, honestly, first time I tried to use it, I found it pretty annoying, so I didn't use it until I saw somebody else was using it and using it quite well. So I have this little steering wheel on here. Press and hold different pieces of it, like there's this look piece of the pie. I can look around in my virtual building. This is really useful when you first get a job. If the building's already designed, okay, what does it look like? What do I want to look out for? I see that, I can see what the structure looks like, what the roof looks like, and get the overall feel for it. I can see the walls are different structure on the two different sides. Say I want to come back to this view later. What I'm going to do, I right-clicked in my viewpoint, save viewpoints, and I have an option to save a viewpoint. So that's how these have been created. I'm going to rename that. Sorry if I do that. Whatever, I'm just going to call it view. You don't want to see me type. I'm horrible at spelling. I'm also going to close this. Quick Skype. That's one thing I forgot to shut down before we got going. Okay, so there's views in there. I also want to point out, well, let me go back. Yeah, this will work. There's the view cube. If you've used other software, other Autodesk software, it has a view cube. There's the home view. If you hover over the cube, you can get the home icon. Click on the home icon, takes you to a view. That's one of the first things I would set when I create a Navisworks file or start using it, because it's quite possible that when you open the file, the view is really small, or it's zoomed in too far, it's zoomed in too close. And yeah, I've run into this plenty of times myself. Or you get turned around upside down in the closet when you're trying to navigate. So when you first open it up, I recommend finding a view that's reasonably close. Hover over the cube so you get the little house icon. Right-click on the house icon, and you have the option to set current view, set this view as my home view. And then you can always come back to that later. No matter how lost you get, you can always click on this home icon. Just a little bit of tips going along with that. Let's go
Well,
to...
Tony, we have a question here.
Oh,
Terry,
yeah.
thank you for the question. Terry asks, is Navisworks standalone or part of AutoCAD? And Navisworks is a standalone product. One of the things I really like about Navisworks is it takes in about 26 different formats. And when I'm talking about formats, I'm talking about, of course it takes AutoCAD, but it'll take MicroStation, 3D Studio, Inventor, ArchiCAD files, SolidWorks files, and so you can take files you get from a number of different places and merge them together in Navisworks. And Navisworks is used, we're showing it primarily as a visualization tool today, but it's very powerful and used heavily in the construction industry in doing clash detection and coordination. And so you can kind of think of it as building the building in 3 dimensions before you actually build it in the field. And so the idea is you identify issues and clashes and coordination items electronically before you have to find them the really expensive way in the field.
Yeah.
And then there's also a scheduling aspect to Navisworks. And so Navisworks will take in, let's see.
Primavera, takes in Microsoft Project,
Asta, Oracle, and then it will also accept a number of laser scan formats as well, including, of course, Recap, an Autodesk product, but Faro, Leica, Trimble, some of those other file and laser scan products out there. So you can really integrate your laser scans with your designs and really see how those things will mesh together before you ever get it out there in the field. And it's such a powerful tool in reviewing your design.
Yeah, I guess I should have opened this up a minute ago. I just went to the open dialog box just so you can see the list of all the various file types that that it will open. I'm going to cancel out of that. Cool. Thanks for the question, Terry. Okay, so I made a couple of views. Well, I went to the view, I think it was called bar. I forgot which one I went to. And then I just changed there's a lighting mode, there's a render mode. I changed to full light, changed to full render. This looks a little bit different. I'm going to save a viewpoint. Let's call it, I think this one was, I started with one called bar. I'm going to put FR for full render just to remind me. So if I go, whoops, it wasn't that. It was cafe. So I guess I should maybe rename this one. Rename. Not that it matters. Okay, so I have two different views. If I click on the right one, there's cafe, two different viewpoints, and there's cafe FR, I named it for full render. Same direction, the same camera view, but I just changed a couple of settings, just so that you know there's some options regarding the viewpoints. How does it appear? What do you want it to look like? There's even things like hidden line that could be useful, depends on exactly what you're looking for. And there's also, there we go, wireframe, which may be a little bit less useful. And Navisworks is used by other industries. Manufacturing, I might use SolidWorks files or plain AutoCAD files or 3D files. That might be more useful for something like that. I'm going to set it back to shaded. And just an extra little tip, maybe you notice that I have two views called cafe. They're not next to each other. By default, it just puts them in the order that you've created them. You can right-click in here, and there's a tool for sort. That'll put them back in alphabetical order. Just an extra little tip. Now they have cafe next to cafe. All right, so let me take a look at yeah, this one will work. So the first walkthrough. There's tools in the viewpoint. Well, let me turn it off for a second. I have walk and fly. I'm just going to start, well, let's start with the fly. That tool is activated. A couple places you can get to that. As I move through here, it's like you're navigating with a flying joystick. Oh, there we go. Maybe fly might be a little bit better outside the building. Let's see if I can get, yeah, okay. So maybe I'm not so good at flying. Remember that home icon I pointed out earlier? I'm going to click on that home icon again and get back in here. The flying, the farther you move your mouse up, it actually flies up like a plane. If you move your mouse down, it flies down. So I don't use the fly all that often. I'm more of a fan of the walk. So I'm going to use the walk tool, and the farther you move your mouse, the faster it goes. If you move your mouse down, it goes backwards. So it's maybe a little more like walking. I'm also going to turn on third person, which just gives you an avatar. So you can get a little better feel for it. Yeah, still maybe not quite right. I'm going to turn on the collision and gravity. I'm going to skip couch for now. When gravity's on, it takes that somewhat literally. And I don't know if you notice, he fell to the ground, my little dude, until he hits the ground. So when you start the walk command, I'm going to go back up to the home. If I started this walk out here and he starts to fall, it takes gravity literally, and I'm going to fall right past my building, and he'll fall forever. So just be wary of that. I'm going to go back to that home. That home button is really handy. This time, instead of walking from outside, I'm going to go back into this view. All right. I'll turn on the avatar again. I'll turn on collision and gravity. Okay. So now I'm inside the building. I think this is really useful when you first get the project, just to get a feel for what is it you're bidding on, and what is it you're going to construct. 2D plans are great, especially if you have experience using those. But there's some things that aren't as obvious. You have to look and use your experience to look at the plans just to know what you're looking at. So I can walk through here. I mean, this is nothing real specific. I'm just getting a feel. Okay, it's a stadium. I'm just going to walk through this corner. I'm walking through here. I got my little dude. But when he hits this edge, he can't walk through that because I have collision turned on. Well, I'm going to temporarily turn that off just so I can walk through this little barrier. You can see there's a keyboard shortcut called Control D for collision. I'll turn it off. Now I can walk through here. But I'm actually going to turn collision back on with my Control D just so I can walk up. Whoops. And we have there we go. I'm going to have to do that again. Walk through here. But when I turn the collision back on, you notice he turns red. That's telling me, oh, he's currently colliding with something. All right, so I need to move up. The steering wheel, I'm going to go back to the steering wheel because that gives me a few more options. Like the option to go up and down. So I'm just going to give him his own little invisible elevator so I can move up a little bit. All right, well, he's plenty clear now. I could walk with this tool again. I can center, look, zoom around, orbit, look. Doesn't walk forward or backward. It just lets you look around. Oh, okay, well, I'm comfortable there. I'm just going to close this and go back to my walk command. Walk up the steps. Well, okay, maybe this might look like you're playing a video game, but it's actually gives you some useful information. There we go. So I walked up the steps, and I'm going towards, oh, does anybody know the Latin word for this? I was going to, before I got here, I was going to say, I'm going to head towards the vomitorium and see if anybody knew what that was, because this is actually a mass exit. Is I forget if it's Latin or Greek, is called a vomitorium. Yes, just like it sounds. But I'm having some issues here as I'm trying to exit through the vomitorium, or the large egress. I'm walking towards it, but I can't pass through. Oh, this could be an issue. Why can't my little dude walk through this exit? Well, let's check on that. See if I can. I'm going to turn him off for just a moment so I can navigate. Oh, come on, there we go. Navigate a little bit. I'm looking underneath here. I'm going to do a dimension here because I'm thinking that this might be too short. Let me go, where am I going? If I click on the right. There it is. I thought I was there. I'm just going to do a point-to-point measurement. Click on the top of this. It should find that plane. Honestly, I hit Z on the keyboard. So now no matter where I click, if I'm not that accurate with my clicking, Navisworks will constrain it to only show me the dimension of the Z-axis. I'm going to go ahead and click. Oh, that's 5'6". That might be a problem, walking out this exit. Just for what it's worth, I'm going to convert this to a red line. Otherwise, it's a temporary dimension, goes away. Now that's permanently part of this view. Ooh, except I should name this view. They call it vomitorium. If I spelled that right. Too short. And, okay, if I go back to this view, the dimensions, markups, red lines are embedded as part of this view. So if I click on this, viewpoint, that dimension is in there. If I just start to navigate away from that, oh, even though I'm basically still in that same view, the dimension went away because it's embedded in this exact view. Right, so that was possibly quite useful. That would be a lot more expensive to change if you found that halfway through construction. This is where Navisworks pays for itself. Because I did a little bit of orientating just so I could see under that. My little dude is stuck in the ground.
Like concrete boots.
He does. Yeah, he's in trouble. Maybe he was the guy that designed this. So I'm going to go back and move away from, go up and down a little bit. When I go away from this view, that dimension, there we go, dimension disappears because it's embedded in that view. So, all right, I'm going to finish that tool. I'm going to go back to my walkthrough. Okay, so we've done a walkthrough. You can see some of the advantages of that. I'm going to turn back around, walk down the steps. In fact, okay, so here I'm finally going to get to the first method of doing a walkthrough. And to do that, I'm going to go to the Animation tab and just click on the button for record. What I'm going to do, click on the record button, walk through the building, and it's going to record my steps. It's going to record the screen recording the video of me walking through here. That's actually pretty straightforward, which is why I went off on some of those other tips and settings. So I click the record button. You can see it's down. As I walk through, I can't quite see the stairs. I'm going to scroll my mouse. We'll tilt the camera up and down. Oh, there's my stairs over there. He's actually fairly forgiving about walking up and down stairs, or he'll walk over the stadium seating. Oh, we even got through that. So I'm just recording a walkthrough. I'm just going to walk to the other end. The farther you push your mouse, the faster it goes. Hopefully that's not too jumpy on your screen. I'll spin around, and I'll stop the recording. That was the process, in case you missed it. It automatically resaves it in my viewpoints as an animation. I'll call it animation 1. If I come back and select this, I have the option on the animation toolbar to play it. There, I've created a video. It goes through the process. It shows me the video I've recorded. This can be exported. Come on, little guy. You can. I'm waiting. It recorded me standing there too. This can be exported. You can send it to a client. You can send it to the architect. You could, walk up to that exit where it was too short and show them that video. This can be sent to somebody who doesn't have. They don't need Navisworks. They don't need AutoCAD. They don't need any Autodesk software at all. It's just a video. If you were to export this, I might bring up a real quick tip on that later on. But yeah, how does that look on the? That's a little jumpy.
Yeah, it's a little jumpy on your recording. I'm looking at 2 screens. It's much smoother there on Tony's.
Yeah, it's just the GoToMeeting. Okay, so that was the first one. Let me see. Oh, one thing I do want to point out, you can change this avatar. If you don't like construction guy with a hard hat, on the Viewpoint tab, there's a little camera in there, edit current viewpoint, and even if you've gone there, you might not have noticed there's a dialog box, give you some options. I'm not actually going to change any of these numbers. I'm going to go down to under collision. There's another button for settings. Within this dialog box is where you can change your avatar. Construction worker, collision volume, office, male, hard hat, hit OK, OK. Now, that's what this guy looks like. Okay, and if you're worried that having that avatar might make your boss think you're playing video games, you just don't want that. There is something called a collision volume. It's just a blue sphere. So I change it to that. There we go. Now I can do the same exact things. I can walk through this building. I can go up to any of these exits. And my volume, this little blue sphere, is, go back to those same settings, that same dialog box, 5'10" and 7/8 tall. So this just came from a metric file, actually. So I could make him 5'11". Let me go ahead and do that. Or, well, Clint, do you know what a standard clearance is? How high do I want all my doorways and exits? And
well, 7 feet would be a good start.
Okay, so I can make this blue sphere, trying really hard not to call it a blue ball, 7 feet tall, hit OK. And then if I walk through the building, it's pretty straightforward and simple. You can actually walk through the building. It's just if this blue sphere ever gets caught, can't go through a doorway, you might have some clearance issues. I can make it 3 foot wide, maybe 37 inches, and check for ADA clearance, going through doorways, checking out the restrooms, hallways, going between desks and cubicles, whatever's in your model, making this 3 feet wide or maybe 3 feet 1 inch just to be safe, checking for clearances.
Can you change the shape of that sphere so that it would represent like a vehicle or something like that?
Yeah. It's just the pretty basic. I can change it radius, height. So I could make him 6 feet. Make it 6 feet. Now let's see if that works. So I should have meant 3. That's 6 feet radius. Well, depends on how big you want. So now I have a red sphere because he's colliding with the floor. I'll bring him up with this little tool. I've got an up-down. There we go. Now I can resume my walk. I can do it here. Is that what you were looking for? Oops, I need to go up a little more.
Yeah.
So are you thinking of like a construction site to see if there's clearance to bring a truck in there?
Well, even an auditorium, somebody bring a vehicle in there.
Yeah, something like this, and there needs to be room for the Zamboni. Alrighty, was there any other questions? I want to jump to...
No new questions.
Okay. There is. I'm going to go back in here and set it just to default. Call that good. Okay, let me take a look at... Oh, I want to play one other one. The second way to do the brain freeze. Where am I going? Turn this off. Video, that's the word I'm looking for, the walkthrough. Second method to do the walkthrough is to create a series of viewpoints, like I've mentioned. In fact, let me do one right here. I'm going to create a viewpoint, say viewpoint, call it walk 1, because I can spell that. Maybe I want to walk over to this side. I'll set up another viewpoint.
Tony, while you're setting up those viewpoints, I want to talk a little bit about the two different versions of Navisworks. So we've got a Navisworks Manage and the Navisworks Simulate. The Simulate is really kind of the basic version of Navisworks. That includes most everything we're looking at today, and so it's got your project viewing, your model review, simulation and analysis, so 5D product scheduling, photorealistic modeling, and all this visualization type stuff we're looking at. When you step up to the next level, which is Navisworks Manage, you start to get into that clash detection and interference checking. And so that's a lot of the stuff I talked about using on a job site, doing some preliminary building that building before you really build it.
Cool.
One good thing about that, if you've got a building design suite premium or a building design suite ultimate, you already have Navisworks, and so it's taking a little bit of time to see how those models merge in there. And then of course, shameless plug, we do training classes here. We've got them scheduled out, I think, on a monthly basis for doing Navisworks, and so we can get you in about a day really familiar with the software and how to walk through it and utilize it for doing visualizations like we're seeing today.
Cool, that's true, and I can pull that up at the end. We can take a look at the different ones. So I made just a few viewpoints. I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to right-click again, add animation. I'll call it animation, whatever my initial, just because I'm lazy. And this part's really tricky. I'm going to drag each viewpoint. Oh, come on. Trickier than I thought. Drag it onto my new animation in order. It doesn't matter what order. What order that you drag them in. Yep, there it goes. Walk 1, 2, 3. Oh, come on already. And the last one, view 4. I was kidding when I said it was tricky, but I think I jinxed myself. Okay, so now they're in order. It'll actually automatically transition. It'll morph between these. I made this animation. I'll click on play. It's going to just transition through those 4 viewpoints that I made. And that one might be a little bit smoother if you're not as good with the mouse doing the video game walkthrough as I am. In fact, there's one that's already been made, one called entry in this file. I'm just going to click on play. This one's a little more professional. Took a little more time to set it up, spent a little time getting the views just right. This you can export, send it to the client, or just share it with the team. This is what the building looks like. This is what we're going to be constructing and/or bidding on. You can set different settings for the visualization. What do you want? Yeah, there's some options for the lighting. What do you want it to look like? So this one, I don't remember how many. There it is. How many views are in here? But this might be a little bit more of a smoother. At least on my screen it was smooth. Depending on the GoToMeeting and the internet connection, yours might have been a little bit jumpier. Within each of those, I'm going to click on the entry. There's view 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 16 views on this one. Have already been set up within this entry. So in summary, so far I've got a few more things I'm actually going to go through and point out. That's the 2 methods of creating a walkthrough. This one, I like the second method because I'm not as good at walking through the building like a video game. I'll take a little more time and set these up. The other method, so where's the one that I made earlier, where I just walked across the floor. If I expand that, let's just get rid of these properties. It made every frame, and you can't even tell I'm moving it. So there's frame 50, 80, 100, 150, 180. I can go through each of these as you're walking through. I don't know how many frames are in there. I'm with the 500 frames now. So I'm just scrolling through, clicking on 700 frames, 800 frames. There we go. 843 frames is what the computer made when I just hit record and walk through. So just to point out a couple of little bit of differences.
Tony, how much work has gone into taking a Revit model when you insert it into Navisworks to get it to a level, this isn't photorealistic by any means, but to this level of visualization?
Oh, well, that's an excellent question. That's an excellent segue, too. I wasn't planning to do this, but let me open a new file. Let's see if I can find it. Expose my computer network here. Let me see if did I put this Revit? No, I didn't put it in here. Okay. Bear with me 1 minute, so if you want to stall for like 20 seconds,
Well, that's great. I'll stall.
I'm going to open.
Gina has another question.
Okay.
While you do that. Is there a setting to control the speed between each view on the animation?
Yes. There's several settings.
About 11 seconds. Tony.
Yeah, okay. Sorry. No, where was I? Samples. No, that's not one. There's several settings that control the visualization and the walkthrough and different places. So let me see, advanced sample, basic sample project. This, I believe, is the so I'm in Navisworks. To answer your question, Clint, I'm in Navisworks and I'm opening a Revit file. You can see it's a file that comes with a Revit, it's a sample file. .rvt. It's an Autodesk Revit project. I'm just going to click open. This might take a few seconds, but it looks like you're natively opening a Revit file. Technically, it's converting it in the background.
So this is where we put the small print in, and we say that the visualization is only as good as the model, right?
Yeah, and you can do. There we go. Okay, it flashed up with that ice stadium for a moment. Let's see. Oh, so there's viewpoints that were already in Revit. So you saw I just opened this file. Yeah, this one will work. These 3D views are already in there. I can zoom around, I can pan, I can orbit, I can walk through. You've seen that. You can record the walkthrough. You can have it morph between viewpoints. But let's talk about a little bit of visualization for at least just a minute. I'm in this living room view. Let me just stay with this one. Some things you can do back on the viewpoint tab. I pointed out earlier I can do a full render. I can do scene lights, headlights. Come on. There we go. I just completely changed the view of this by going to scene lights. See if I change full lights. Yeah. Well, let me save this viewpoint just so I can go back between them. I'll call it living room. Living room. I forgot what I did. Scene lights.
Scene lights.
Let's call it scene because I'm a slow typer. Oh, actually that one was full. So let me rename this one. Living room. I'll just call it full. For full lights. I'll switch my lighting over to scene lights, and you can see it change. I'll just save this just so I can quickly go back between living room, scene. All right, so I have 3 different living room viewpoints saved, and they're each remembering their lighting setting and their rendering setting, their rendering mode, full render. So you can see the difference. So hopefully that answers your question. I forget who asked it. Was that Gina asked the question? Yeah. Cool. So hopefully this answers it. Oh, sorry, that was actually a different question. That was Clint's question that I'm answering. the rendering.
Gina's was about the speed between the images and the animation.
That was the easy one. Okay, so you can change this between here. Let me go with this scene lights, full rendering, and there is actually another tool in the tab in the toolbar for rendering. I can set up a ray trace. Let me do medium quality. So the bottom half of the button will let you change what basic setting you're using, and there's more in there. There's more than I'm not showing you. And clicking the top half of the button will start the ray trace process. And on my laptop, I can hear the fans are starting to spin up. The CPU is starting to get pegged. It's using all my CPU, probably a lot more of the RAM. And it started. You can see at the bottom, percentage. It's a live, real-time, iterative rendering. So this might take a couple of minutes to change the scene. And there's 5%. So you can do rendering within here. Personally, I tend to do my rendering within Revit, if nothing else, just because I'm more comfortable with that. I know where all the settings are at in Revit. You can do renderings in this. You can do renderings in the cloud. You can see up on the ribbon there's rendering in the cloud. There's a couple other options. There's Autodesk rendering. On Ray Trace, there's an option for custom settings. Feel free to explore that. Okay, this is taking a little longer. Maybe I shouldn't have done the medium quality. I should have done the low quality one. It's only 5% rendered right now. And depending on your monitor, it's a little bit dark. I think I'm going to switch to a different file just to show you this really quickly. And then, let me see, what else did I want to point out? You know what? I think this is a good place to stop. It might be a little hard to see. I'm going to switch to a different one just so you can see it a little better. I don't know if you can hear my fan. They're spinning up on the laptop. It's getting all warm. I'm going to stop this rendering because it's an iterative rendering. It just keeps going and going and going. Actually, this one does hit 100%. In Revit, it never finishes until you hit stop. I'm going to open another file. Oh, it's not in there anymore. Okay. Bear with me one moment. I have to go back and open another file. Just going to do one more rendering, and then, Clint, I think there's some things we'll finish up with. I have a few things I was going to point out.
Yeah, and if you guys have any, you users out there have any questions, feel free to shoot them over to us.
Just, okay, fine, don't say that. Oh, it's going to make me go through the open all over again. Shoot, okay, so I got to stall for another 5 seconds. Okay. Oh, it's right there. There we go. And hit no this time. There we go. I have, there we go, a couple of views set up. Well, let me just show you what I set up. This is the same view. This is a full rendering, and this is a shaded view. Same, there we go. These two, I'll try not to switch quite so quickly. Same exact view. I just changed one setting between these two. Also with the living room. This is the one you just saw. I changed a couple settings earlier. I'm going to go back to this one. And if this is the one I'm remembering, I'm going to do the rendering. I'm going to, yeah, let's do low quality. So I just clicked Ray Trace. It's going to run through one more rendering. And hopefully this one will look a little bit prettier. So we do have some upcoming events. So as soon as this rendering finishes, I'll switch over to those. There's a 10%.
Oh, wow.
And this is within Navisworks. I didn't change very much at all. I didn't customize a whole lot. There's 20% completed. It's not going to look a whole lot different once it gets to 100%. And this is the lower quality rendering. And I didn't change a whole lot. I think I added a light, actually, or changed the light setting. Honestly, it was by accident. But, yeah, so this is a rendering within Navisworks. So even if you don't have Revit, or you're not comfortable with Revit, or AutoCAD, or 3ds Max, or whatever the program, whatever the building may have been constructed in, designed in, you can still do some renderings. You know, I don't know how much you would use this for construction, maybe more for your website or brochures or bidding on trying to get a job.
Well, you know, I think about when I started in construction, and I did a lot of estimating, you know, and really coming out of school and looking at plans, if I had a good way to visualize the space, it was always a really good learning experience for me to estimate something and then go out and see it being built, because I really got a good grasp of the scale and how it felt. And you know, it's kind of the way I learned to, you know, understand what a 2D document looked like in 3 dimensions. This would have been such a valuable tool for me coming out of school and understanding, you know, being able to take a look at what that building looks like and kind of what it feels like being inside of it. I would have had a much better comfort level with the scale of all those things. You know, and I think about, you know, me in the industry doing that, but you also think about your clients, and they're not accustomed generally to looking at 2D documents and understanding what they look like in 3 dimensions. This is a very easy way to give them a visual representation of of what those look like. And so, you know, if the picture's worth 1,000 words, the 3D model's worth 1,000,000. Is that the same thing?
This works for me.
Okay.
Jason had a question. What system requirements are needed to produce high-quality renderings? There's no one answer. The more expensive, the better and faster. Even if you don't have a top-of-the-line computer, okay, I'm going to stop this just so I can show you low quality. I did low quality, and you saw it, well, a moment ago I just changed it. Oh, I should have exported that. Medium quality, high quality. There's also settings for coffee break rendering. So it sets the settings based on, I think it adjusts for your computer for about a 10-minute rendering, or a lunch break rendering for a 1 hour, or an overnight rendering. It'll adjust the settings based on the amount of time you have, which I think is a cool feature. I haven't noticed that in other programs. It might be there, I just haven't noticed it. And there's custom settings. So you can adjust it based on your hardware and your time. I know years ago, I would set my renderings on Friday before leaving the office and let it let the computer spin all weekend, and hope that the IT person didn't do any maintenance over the weekend that would cause my computer to reboot, as happens sometimes. Computers are much, much faster now. For actual hardware requirements, I'm going to refer you to Autodesk website. You can check and see what they have there. This computer is actually fairly new. The one I'm using, I've got like 32 gigs of RAM and an expensive graphics card. But you don't need that. It just renders faster. Carl has a question. Will Navis use multiple CPUs like 3ds Max? I honestly don't know. I haven't checked that. I'm going to refer you to their website because I honestly have not checked that. Yeah, I can give you the Revit answer. I don't remember if Navisworks uses multiple CPUs. If it doesn't now, Autodesk in general is, when they're updating subroutines within programs, if it's not already utilizing multiple cores, they tend to rewrite it so that it will. So honestly, the answer it varies, depending on exactly what the process is and how they've written the program. Because it was originally written before multi-core CPUs, but now multi-core CPUs are standard. So as they rewrite bits of code, they rewrite it to take advantage of that. That's my understanding. And I think, was there a question that I missed? I think Terry answered your question earlier, the height of the person. I'm just going to go there really quickly. On the viewport, I'm going to go back to this camera, back to these settings. When I was changing the avatar, under the collision settings, there is a height. So my guy is 5 foot 10 inches, which is the default. You can change that in here to be whatever height you want it to be. Hopefully that answers your question. Let me switch back to the slides, and if you're watching this recording on YouTube, you can pause here. I'm not going to talk about this one. It's just if you wanted to export the animation, there's some settings you can use. These are just some sample settings. They worked fine for me. It was quick and easy. I'm not really going to spend too much time on that one. I'm not going to go through those steps. Questions? Your last chance for questions? I know I have some questions, but I'll just show them on the screen, and they're more visual. Like, who does that? But anyway, so I'll give you a minute to type in your questions, and let me.
Hopefully, you can solve that before you build it.
Yeah, exactly.
Or before the inspector catches.
Yeah, this is what's on the screen. This picture is probably the #1 reason that for the purchase of Navisworks. So general contractors catch this before it gets to the field.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have just a few more things to go over. We've got a new product that is out related to Autodesk, and really creates a great solution for managing your documents in the field. So I want to just take a second here to show you guys this.
There we go.
This is called BIM 360 Docs. It's got some great features, both in importing documents and then managing your documents, and really doing it on an enterprise level. And so the idea here is as a general contractor, you would you would sponsor this BIM 360 Docs project. You would maintain all your drawings centrally in this location, and then on an enterprise-wide allow access for any of your subcontractors, owners, or invested stakeholders. As you can see here, it's a very easy, simple interface. Also transfers onto the iPad as a simple interface as well. And one of the really beautiful things about it is you can take a Revit document, your sheet sets will import directly into Docs, and so it makes importing those documents easy and having a really good representation of what the drawings show. A few other features in here. It makes assigning folder permissions very easy, and so you can see by the slide of a document, a slide of a bar here, I can either indicate that somebody has publish rights, view rights, edit rights, or control or full control rights, just at the click of a button. So Docs is a great communication tool. It's a very simple and affordable way to manage your documents in the field, and as you can see, makes it really easy to navigate.
And would you say this is something that's Autodesk is definitely putting some effort behind, and it's improving all the time, and they're adding more features?
Yeah, they're putting a lot of R&D behind this product. They're having new updates come out about every 2 weeks.
Okay.
And so we've seen markup tools. There's issue tracking, and then
there's a markup.
As you can see, somebody wasn't incredibly happy about it. But it makes it really easy to switch between our documents. And again, the navigation on the iPad is very seamless and on an enterprise level. So, anybody working on your project can view and access those documents, can mark them up, can add issues, and then you can track those issues to closure.
Cool. And can I view the same files in the field on my iPad that you're viewing in the office?
At the same time, we can mark them up at the same time.
Cool. And how much does all of this cost? Do they charge me per drawing, per file?
It's per project.
Okay.
And so it's about $250 per month on a project basis.
How many users? Is that per user per month?
No, it's for everybody using.
Okay.
Everybody using
just
the
per project, no matter how big
project.
the project is. $250 a month.
Indeed.
Okay. Did you want to talk about licensing? We switching screens. There we go.
Yeah, the other thing I want to mention is some licensing changes that are happening at Autodesk. At the end of July, we're moving away from a perpetual licensing model to strictly a term-based license model on all suites. There are very few products that remain as a perpetual license. So if you guys have any questions about managing your licenses, or if you're looking to add some licenses, would be happy to, I could talk to you, or anybody here at CAD 1 can talk to you about some of those changes that are coming down. But moving to a term-based perpetual license really lowers the cost of entry into getting some software and adding some new solutions like Navisworks.
Cool. And I think, was there one more thing you wanted to mention, or did you already? There you go.
I think that's it for today.
Okay. And the term licensing, that counts for Autodesk, for Revit also, right?
Yeah, Revit Architecture is a standalone product. The opportunity to buy a perpetual license of Revit Architecture went away at the end of January. And so that is the only option for buying Revit Architecture now. If you do own a perpetual license, the best thing to do is keep your maintenance up on that license. You'll still have all the benefits that you've always had with that license, and really nothing changes there. You'll be able to use that in the foreseeable future.
If somebody wanted to add another license, can they still purchase Revit Architecture, or do they purchase Revit, one-box Revit, or do they purchase the design suite? Do you know? Okay.
There are a lot of different options in the way you can get Revit Architecture, but Revit Architecture is being merged into your standard Revit license.
Okay. And David also asked in the free version, I'm assuming, my screen's, there we go. And I'm assuming Navisworks, can I control security settings for viewers? In the free version, I honestly don't remember.
I think, David, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you're asking about docs.
Sorry.
One of the large differences between the paid and the free version, I'm glad you brought that up, is in the paid version you have individual folder access, and so you could see that I was controlling access per folder. In the free version you have security control only on a project level basis, and so if you give read access to someone, they can see everything within that project.
Cool.
Good question.
Yeah. So you've seen this was just one short topic. I touched on walkthroughs and a couple other visual settings that can work along with this. We do have a one-day class here at our office that covers this and several other things. You can find that schedule at our on our website. Some of the other, come on, trying to change the slide. There we go. Some of the other classes that are coming up and a couple of events. So the first few up there, we have Revit Architecture coming up. There's an InfraWorks class, CAD to GIS. I think we're one of the few places in the country that teach that workflow. Just a couple-day class, and a lot of people have the tools for that, but they just don't know how to put them together. They just haven't, or didn't know that it could do that. There's also just straight-up AutoCAD class. My next Revit MEP class is coming up. Was it next week? April 21 is Revit Radio. If you're not familiar with that, it's a webinar like this, but it's all questions and answers. We have Autodesk certification if you want to get certified in just about any Autodesk product. Actually, I don't know if Navis is in there. And
on June 17th, we've got an event coming up. Watch for some information on that. The topic is Future of Making Things. We've got an executive from Autodesk coming in to talk about where they perceive the future of design and construction is going. A very interesting topic. I saw the presenter speak a few months ago. A very interesting topic, but we're going to have a joint networking event that will involve AGC, AIA, and the IECRM. So it should be a great networking event. And we look forward to seeing you there.
Cool. Yeah. Go ahead and join us there. We have other things. We have classroom trainings, online mentoring. We have support. A lot of times we'll do consulting at people's offices. And that's what I have. I want to thank you for your time and attention, and hopefully this was useful. Give us a call and let us know what your other needs are.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.